ဒီနေ့ဉာဏ်ဖြစ်ခြင်းရဲ့အကြောင်း၄မျိုးပြောပါမယ်ဉာဏ်ဖြစ်ခြင်းရဲ့အကြောင်းဆိုတဲ့ခေါင်းစဉ်နဲ့
Today the Sayadaw will be discussing the factors conducing to the development of wisdom.
မနေ့ကပြောခဲ့တဲ့တရားထဲမှာ ယောဂဝေဇာရိဘူရိအာထုတ်ခြင်းကြောင့်ကမ္မထန်တရားအာထုတ်ခြင်းကြောင့်တကယ်စင်စစ်မြေကြီးနဲ့တူတဲ့ဉာဏ်များဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတတ်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အချက်မှာဉာဏ်ဤတိုးပွားလာတယ်ဆိုတဲ့အချက်မှာဉာဏ်ဖြစ်ဉာဏ်တိုးလာတာကအကြောင်းတရားအထုတာကအကျိုးတရားဆိုတာဆက်ဆက်နေပါတယ်။အထုလို့ရှိရင်ဉာဏ်ဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတော့အာမထုတ်ရင်တော့ဉာဏ်မဖြစ်ဘူးပေါ့။အဲ့ဒါမှအကြောင်းတရားပါနေပါတယ်။အဲ့ဒီအကြောင်းတရားတည်းမဟုတ်ဘူးဒီပြည့်အကြောင်းတွေလည်းရှိသေးတယ်ဆိုတာပေါ့လေ။ရှားဆက်တွေရအကြောင်းလေးတွေဒီနေ့ထည့်သွင်းပြီးတော့ရှင်းပြပါမယ်။
In yesterday's talk, the Sayadaw concluded by saying that through meditation it is possible for great wisdom to arise, a wisdom that is as expansive, as grounded as the earth. It follows from that statement that meditation is the cause for the development of wisdom. It is the cause which brings about an effect. It also means that wisdom will not be able to arise without the practice of meditation. However, for a better understanding of what is meant by that statement, one should look into more detail to see what are the various causes behind this development of wisdom. This is the subject of today's discussion.
အဲ့ဒီဉာဏ်ဖြစ်ခြင်းရဲ့အကြောင်း၄မျိုးကတစ်ပညာတောင်းတဏိကကမ္မအတိပညာကိုဖြစ်စေနိုင်တဲ့ရှေးအတိတ်ကံပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီအကြောင်းကြောင့်လည်းပဲဉာဏ်ဖြစ်နိုင်တယ်
There are four factors conducive to the development of wisdom. The first one is past karma, which gives, is conducive for the arising of wisdom.
ဒုတိယကတော့အပြပိစ္ဆလောကုပပတ္တိဆိုတာပြဘာရခေါ်တဲ့ဒေါသကင်းရာဘုံမှာဖြစ်ရခြင်းတဲ့
The second factor is gaining rebirth or being in an existence or a plane where there is an absence of anger, of aversion.
တတိယတော့ဣန္ဒြိယပရိပါကဆိုတာပညာဣန္ဒြေဉာဏ်ပညာဖြစ်ထွန်းနိုင်ရာအရွယ်ပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီအရွယ်ရောက်ခြင်းပေါ့
The third factor is being in an age group, being in an age group which is conducive to the development of wisdom.
နောက်ဆုံးအကြောင်းကတော့ကိလေသာဒူရီဘာဝကိလေသာတို့ရဲ့ဝေးကွာခြင်းတဲ့
The fourth and the last factor is the remoteness of the kilesas.
အဲ့ဒီလေးမျိုးတွေကပညာသမဏတိကကံကြောင့်ဉာဏ်ဖြစ်ရတယ်ဆိုတာပါလဲဆိုတာရှင်းပြဖို့ပါပဲ
The first factor needs to be explained. In what way can past karma be helpful in activating wisdom?
မိဒီပုဂ္ဂိုလ်မဆိုဂုံနဲ့လတ်လာပမငဲ့ပဲနဲ့ပစ္စည်းရာရေးနာမည်ကြီးရေးပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒါကိုနည်းနည်းမှမငဲ့ပဲနဲ့စေရနာကောင်းကောင်းစိတ်တန်တန်နဲ့ပေါ့လေသူတို့ဘာကိုတရားဟောတယ်တဲ့အခြားပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဟောတယ်ပေါ့လေတရားဟောတော့တရားထဲမှာမျက်မှောက်ဘဝမှာကိုယ်နှုတ်စိတ်ထားသုံးပါးလုံးယဉ်ကျေးအောင်နေထိုင်တဲ့နည်းတွေပါသွားတာအတိပေးတာတွေတမလွန်အတွက်လည်းပဲသူတထူအကျိုးရှိအောင်ပေါ့လေနီလန်းနေပါသွားပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီနီလန်းနေပေးတော့အဲ့ဒီနီလန်းတိုင်းကျင့်သုံးတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်မှာပြစ္ဆုတ်ပန်တမလွန်နှစ်တာအကျိုးရှိသွားတယ်အဲ့ဒါလို့တရားဟောကြားတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာအတိတ်ကပညာတောင်းတဲ့နိကကံပေါ့အသိပညာကိုဖြစ်စေနိုင်တဲ့ကံဟောင်းကပါလာတော့ကုသိုလ်စိတ်ဖြစ်ရင်ဉာဏ်ပါရတဲ့ဉာဏ်ရှင်တတ်တယ်လို့အဆိုရှိပါတယ်
တရားဟောတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ရှေ့ဘဝ
ရှေ့ဘဝ
A person who is not in any way motivated by any self-interests, not at all motivated by a desire for fame or fortune, who gives discourses, who teaches the Dhamma to other people, is in fact creating the karma that will conduce to the development of wisdom. If the Dhamma that is being taught to other people comprises a system or a method or technique of practice in order to civilize one's bodily actions, one's speech and mind, then that Dhamma would conduce to the benefit of that person's students in this world as well as in the hereafter. For such a person, because he is involved continually frequently in giving discourses, his mind would frequent the fields of knowledge. His mind would often arise in conjunction with knowledge. And for such a person who has done this sort of karma before in a past life, that is the past karma that would conduce to the development of wisdom.
တရားတွေဟောတယ်ဆိုတာဒါနနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့တရားစကားသီလနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့တရားစကားသမာဓိဘာဝနာနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့တရားစကားပညာဘာဝနာနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့တရားစကားပေါ့လေခုလက်တွေ့သတိပဋ္ဌာန်ဘာဝနာတရားတွေပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒါတွေအကုန်ယူရမှာပါပဲ
The Dhamma discourse that is given by that individual, which was mentioned just now, includes, of course, fundamentals like dana, like giving, sila, precepts, samadhi, concentration or tranquility, meditation, as well as the path of wisdom, development of wisdom meditation.
ပြီးတော့လောကကြီးရဲ့နဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့အပြစ်ကင်းတဲ့သိပ္ပအတ္တတို့သိပ္ပယတနာဆိုတာရှိကတော့စင်စည်းတမြင့်စည်းတပေါ့လေဒါမျိုးတွေပါပဲအခုကာလတော့သိပ္ပံအတ္တပညာအမျိုးမျိုးတွေပေါ့အပြစ်ကင်းတဲ့အတ္တပညာတွေပြစ်ကင်းဆိုတာကသူတထုဒုက္ခမပေးတဲ့အတ္တပညာတွေပေါ့ပြီးတော့လေလုတ်ကိုရောကာမယတနာဒီအတ္တတွေပြီးတော့နေခဗေဒစရှိတဲ့အတ္တပညာတွေပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒီအတ္တပညာတွေစိတ်ကောင်းနှလုံးကောင်းနဲ့သင်ကြားပေးတာပေါ့အဲ့လိုသင်ကြားပေးတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဟာပညာဉာဏ်ကြီးဖို့ရံပေါ့လေဖြစ်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီပြုခဲ့တဲ့ပညာတောင်တဏိကကံအကြောင်းပြုပြီးတော့ကုသိုလ်စိတ်ဖြစ်လို့ရှိရင်ဉာဏ်ပါလာတတ်တယ်
The subjects that are taught by such a person includes other subjects like science and the arts, or any sort of skill which is blameless. Blameless in the sense that the art or the science or the knowledge that one is trying to impart to one's students will not or is not being imparted for the sake of causing destruction or causing harm to others. This could also include other things like astrology and so forth. So if these blameless subjects have been taught before by this particular person, then in this present life, should there arise in him or her a wholesome consciousness, it is usually accompanied by wisdom.
ပြီးတော့ဓမ္မဂရိကပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ကိုအလေးမြတ်ပြုပြီးတော့တရားဟောစီတာတရားပွဲတွေပါလိကျင့်ပတာပါလိကမ္မထန်ဌာနတွေပါလိဖွင့်တာပါလိဒါတွေလည်းဒီထဲမှာပါနိုင်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဒါလိုပြုလုပ်တာဟာအဲ့ဒီပြုလုပ်တဲ့ကံအကြောင်းပြုပြီးတော့မိပြုပြီးတော့ကုသိုလ်စိတ်ဖြစ်လို့ရှိရင်ဉာဏ်ပညာတွေကြီးတတ်တယ်လို့ဆိုရှိပါတယ်
It is also said that if a person had been a preacher man before, a preacher preaching the Dhamma, preaching the scriptures to other people, or had been one who had been quite actively involved in the founding of religious institutions, like perhaps a meditation center, will also be endowed with this quality of having the opportunity to develop wisdom on top of the frequency of wisdom or knowledge accompanying each moment or frequent moments of wholesome consciousness.
Dilu thana myu ma luat de pisi thaupan pi do akunyi pe da do pi do wiyawasa khaw de luk a pe da do akhwin yin ma myaw be ne po le sit kaung thlong kaung ne akunyi pe da do ai da riya le be nyan phit chin a chaung ni de ma pa ba de.
Another possible factor that would conduce to the arising of wisdom lies in service that has been done and executed in a very selfless way, without any selfish motivations, without any desires for fame or fortune and so forth. Like, for example, providing a service in helping people who are intent on meditation, providing service with respect to food and accommodation and board and lodging and so forth.
Another kuga Buarai ma Nong Kaja Lucy and Bolly, Buarai ma Singing don't hear me, don't Pinya Jueredu, Pinya Piezon to Pia Vazil Dilo Patana, who Mulin down who Pubiro, a Mew do Dana Guduri Puda, Gudu Muri Puda. Hello, Gudu Muri Pulushi, Putare. Dekan Jang Pubiro Gudu say Pilushi, Nyan Parate, Nyan Shindate.
Another very effective condition for this development of wisdom is that a person makes a very to wish for wisdom. Every time he or she performs a meritorious deed like dana or sila or whatever, any meritorious deed that is performed is being done with a wish for wisdom. If this had been a preoccupation of that particular person for many lives, then it constitutes a very strong force that would conduce to the development of great wisdom.
Gupyoge Hariha Pinya Daunediga Kanya Nyanjishin people ni to Chobi Pyopi Babi.
So this is a brief exposition of this first factor of how past karma can be the cause for the arising of wisdom.
Tutiya garo Abhyabisa Lokupa Patti Sura. Abhyabisa Lokupa Patti Sura Abhyabara Sura Dola Kine Lukawara. Eri Dola Kenya or Loka Abhyabisa Loka Lukaware. Eragaro Jamabu Mabe. Jamabu Mapia Jin Lusovare. Jamabu Mabridri and Nina Piaje. The Guna Yogaram Hopo Pavilo Yanjia the Rolo Sura Jamari Ha Buddhism Chibi Melu Bong Aya Doda through Mashiv, Doda Candy Monari, Say Dodari, Say Sodari, Body, Miedari, Dari Mashiv the Roma, Miera 18 Doda came here. Pero Jamabi Ha Abu E Yadavi, the Yadi Ulu, counted so bad. Pretty Johnny Le Pavare. အဲ့ဒီလိုပြပါတာကင်းပြီးတော့အပူရိမြတ်တာရာသီဥတုကောင်းတဲ့မြမပြည်မှာဖြစ်ရတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဟာကုသိုလ်စိတ်ဖြစ်လို့ရှိရင်ဉာဏ်ပါရတဲ့တဲ့သူတို့မှာဉာဏ်အမြဲတမ်းရှင်းနေတယ်လို့ဆိုပါတယ်ဒီမှာ
Being born or gaining rebirth in a world that is devoid of hatred is a second factor that will conduce to the arising of wisdom. The world that is devoid of hatred here, of course, refers to the Brahma world. Those who have cultivated a very high degree of tranquil meditation will gain rebirth in that world, and it is said that there they throughout their existence in the Brahma world, there is not a single moment where their consciousness is tainted by hatred, any form of hatred. There is not the slightest degree of aversion, of dislike in their minds. Perhaps in addition to the very nature, the environment also consolidates their position, their ability to live in a state totally devoid from hatred. It is said that the environment does not have extremes of temperatures. It is very nice and comfortable and perfectly suitable for beings who live without hatred. So it is said that for such beings living in such a world, free from discomfort and free from hatred, each moment of consciousness that arises within such a being is accompanied by wisdom, accompanied by knowledge.
ဒါကတော့ဘုန်းကြီးကစာရပြောရတာပါအခုဘုရားတော့ဗြဟ္မပြေရောက်ဖူးတာမဟုတ်တော့သူတို့စီမှာယာတိဥရုမျှမမျှဆိုတာမသိရပါဘူးဒေါသတွေခင်းတာကတော့တရားနဲ့ဆက်ဆက်ပြီးတော့မှန်းလို့တော့ရပါတယ်
Well, Sayadaw is passing you this information from the scriptures. Unfortunately, since he has not yet had this opportunity to visit the Brahma world, he cannot testify that they have very comfortable weather there. However, through the practice of meditation, he is able to project an understanding of how it would be like to live in a world without hatred.
ဘုရားလက်ထက်ကဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဘုရားတရားကြားနာတဲ့ပိဋကတွေထဲမှာပြမာတွေကတရားသဘောမြန်မြန်ပေါက်လွယ်တယ်တတိဖြစ်ရတာမှကြာပါသေးတယ်တခဏလေးတတိလေးဖြစ်လိုက်တာနဲ့ပဲညာတခါတည်းပွင့်သွားတာပဲချက်ချင်းပဲတရားသူတွေရသွားကြတာအမှန်တမြန်နေတဲ့ဒီလိုအဆိုရှိပါတယ်
It seems that these Brahmas are incredibly bright and intelligent beings. You may be interesting for you to know that they need not have to go through so much pain and suffering, go through so much meditation practice to get enlightened. It seems that just a few moments of mindfulness will be able to make them enlightened.
Santayane Kamagoni go Quatara, the Doda le Kennedy, so Yamyan Puemabo Ulugalo Niaja Nayasa Tia Kamago Ayundi Laisava Miani or Edidam have a name movie. Safety Nimu Miaja, Drumaro, Kamago Laisara Machine, Safety Nimu, a same shade. Same shade, or Tamariga, Tamatane, Vedro, Tinyani, Babi. Taya Holita, never Chechen, Yani, Drupuendora, that's what they chat.
Through the power of their jhanic absorptions, they have been able to be completely free from the kilesas, from sensual objects, from sensual pleasures during the length of stay in that world, throughout their lifespan in the Brahma world. It is not therefore surprising that with such a pure state of consciousness, enlightenment can very easily occur. For many of us mortals here, it is quite a different case. We have steeped so deeply in sensual pleasures for so long that even when we enter an intensive retreat, we find our mind playing truant very often. We are still plagued by memories of pleasurable sensual pleasures and so forth. It is difficult for us to achieve that level of purity that the Brahmas already have by their own nature.
Kamagone Sabida, Tayamu Kembi, Safety in the Mari Yama, Yam Chilwede, so the Hoido, Tubo Logama, Ludari Garo, Nizin, Jodunia, me Ayun Kamago, Ja Ayun Kamago, and not Ayun Kamago, Ayada Ayun Kamago, Titri Ayun Kamago, Wally. Erarine Sabida Salamu. Swellam Tanari Kim so video. Many of your day, Messi Sadi in the Samzinia, 2 option. Apia and Lamoli Sanyame, Ayunine Sabido, Tayamudi Machia on Savido, Samzia, Pido, Miyaga Majayaga Masala, Madodi, Kamaguni Padevido, Tayamudi Kendora. Commission and Nigoranari came with the Mari to which I yada, and Yanifilla, no by.
For people like us in this human plane, we have to take special measures to be free as far as possible from the sensual pleasures, from sensual objects. In Sayadaw's talk yesterday, he had discussed how important it was to be alert and on guard at all the sense doors, to exercise restraint, especially at the 5 sense doors, so that if any pleasant or unpleasant sensual object were to confront us, then we would be able to exercise restraint and mindfulness, and thereby save ourselves from getting lost in fantasies and thoughts about the experience of sensing in that particular sense door. With the exercise of restraint at the sense doors, plus the diligent effort to activate mindfulness at every moment, the mind can gradually, slowly but surely be kept more and more remote from the kilesas, so that there can be enough space and purity for true wisdom to eventually blossom.
Tatiya Jangara Indriya Pripaka Indri Yinche Chin Indri Yinche Chin Sura Pinya Indri Yinche Chin Kovare Sinyidu Myumyendu Pinya Yinche Chin Eriga Lizene Ngaze Ayue Body Era Pinya Tawdeniga Pine Kovare Pinya Tataka Pine Kovare Nayere Poku Miagaro Jamayale Kong Twida Leve Nino Nero Kamago Ayuni Womha Say a young Miajare Piro Kone Sa Pivo Lila Samu Leve David Meshija a Biobane Pijare Pijaro Druma Pinya Yinchete a Paimohu At least in Gazaja Yogwabi solution of Pina Doroli Yinja at which only Miala by Nagoga Tongtime Pina de Boko Roma TV Yolarushi, Dorosin to Mian to Yani Pitate, Ilusovare. The show no nanga Tapan Pina Shini Soye, TV Jama Yanga Yinja bit of Pizon La Pieto. No boy, the girl Lumia Pia Mesoye. Ngaze, listen and Ngaze, a UA Javoli, Pia Bazi, Lulu Madru, Yolinja, somebody Fafubare. Era Indria Pripaka, Indri Incha Muja, Yampinya, Chipon Lady Babe.
The third factor is maturity of the faculties. This actually refers to a certain age group for human beings. It refers specifically to the age group between 40 and 50. It is said that young people who are still very strong and robust, full of energy, are too deeply immersed in sensual pleasures to be concerned with more serious things, be concerned with this development of wisdom. It is said that since they are so deeply immersed in chasing the illusory sense pleasures of life, they do not care less to spend too much time studying and learning and developing their faculties of wisdom and knowledge. However, come the age of 40 plus till 50, one begins to mellow down. The essential pleasures of life may not seem to be so pleasurable after all, and one tends to settle down and to consider deeper questions on life. It is said that at such an age, in such an age group, people who may be very frivolous and carefree in their youth may even turn to be more philosophical and more deeply interested in developing wisdom. Sayadaw says that he has read in an article where in the West it seems that there are some people who find that within that age of 40 and 50 they have made great discoveries and have gained a tremendous amount of experience before shooting into prominence in the world of science and so forth, that they even wish that in the hereafter they be born as a 40-year-old.
Every year, my lula milk del so are. Good agavalo, na biava. Lunga luveri ha. Good ring at Twitteri, slow shalavi, city slow shalavi so ye. Kamago ayu warm ha. Lola Pete had anybody. Mu kitchen and penny daddy. So Kamago ayu never name movie the one it up. Tilo go muya, no muyari, tan shimido yinji out. Two Abin Sydney Satari, Miamabido, Dinyani, Pua on Lopuya through Samagunham. Whoever I change only Yara, the Gabalo Choji or you too, your water time it is so in Pusova Lema. The Yara, you Kamago season in Amayalo, Sijo Shudari, Pido number 4 Shudari, body Patrino Baros, only by Logama. Era di show Luja, the Miashiva Letama. In a Gavadu Gavada, Doromia ha, Seiko, Lotari, a duet, Boa social near Tipietwavo, Tepido, Nina Vare.
In fact, it is pretty obvious in the world today that youth are clamoring for more and more freedom with respect to an enjoyment, with respect to the enjoyment of sensual pleasures. There is more and more experimentation with the various and multifarious levels and types of sensual pleasures. It is the common idea that freedom lies in the ability to let oneself go completely, to just have this complete spectrum of choice and actually experimenting with whatever that is available. There is no thought at all, generally, for any sort of control of the body, of action, of speech, and to even talk about civilizing one's actions and speech could be a taboo in certain circles. As for civilizing one's mind, of taming one's mind, this is quite unheard of in many places. So we come to know of innumerable cases of young people starving for newer and newer experiences, experimenting with dangerous substances, with psychedelic drugs, with heroin, with LSD, and other stuff. It is unfortunate that such people, in thinking that there is something beyond this common experience of sensual pleasures, to be found in such dangerous substances. Sayadaw regrets to hear of so many cases of young people who have destroyed their whole life, who have perished as a result of their experimentation.
သူတို့ကစိတ်ကိုလွတ်လပ်ခွင့်ပေးထားလို့ရှိရင်ကိုယ်ရောနှုတ်ကောလွတ်လပ်ခွင့်ပေးထားလို့ရှိရင်လွတ်လပ်ခွင့်ရရင်ချမ်းသာမယ်လို့ဒီလိုယုံကြည်ထားတာကိုဒါကတော့ခိုက်တန်တော့ချမ်းသာရင်ချမ်းသာမှာပေါ့ဒါပေမဲ့လို့အဲ့ဒီချမ်းသာမှုရဲ့နောက်ဆွယ်မှာမိမိရောမိမိနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေရောအပြစ်မကင်းတာတွေဖြစ်သွားတာပဲအပြစ်မကင်းလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီဘဝဟာဘယ်တော့မှတာယာစုပြေတဲ့ဘဝမဟုတ်ဘူးဘဝဒီကုန်းချုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာလည်းပဲဝင်းနေစွာနဲ့ဒီကုန်းချုပ်ရတာပဲဒါအရင်စိတ်လိုက်လို့ရှိရင်ကိုယ်တို့စိတ်ထားချုပ်တီးမှုမရှိလို့ဆိုတာဒီမှာသွားပြီးတော့ကောက်ချက်ကြပါတယ်ကိုယ်ရောနှုတ်ကောစိတ်နေအထူးအပြင်စိတ်နေစိတ်ထားရောချုပ်တီးရင်ချုပ်တီးတဲ့အခိုက်အတန့်မှာတော့နည်းနည်းပြင်ပမှုတော့ရှိရင်လည်းရှိမယ်လေဒါမှမဟုတ်နောက်အလေးအကျင့်ရသွားတဲ့အခါအဲ့ဒီလိုချုပ်တီးခြင်းကြောင့်ကိုယ်မူရာနှုတ်မူရာအထူးအပြင်စိတ်နေစိတ်ထားလေးတွေဟာတန့်ရှင်းလာလို့ရှိရင်ကိုယ်ဘဝကြည်နပ်လာတယ်တန့်ရှင်းတာတွေ့တော့ကြည်နပ်လာတယ်ပို့ပြီးတော့တန်ဖိုးထားလာတယ်တန်ဖိုးထားတော့ပို့ပြီးတော့ကိုချုပ်တီးတော့ဘဝဟာအခြေစိုးအနေစိုးမဖြစ်ဘူးဘဝဇာသိမ့်တဲ့အခါမှာလည်းပဲရှင်းရှင်းကြည်ကြည်လေးနဲ့ဘဝဇာသိမ့်ရတယ်အဲ့ဒီအခြေအနေတွေထောက်ဆကြည့်ဖို့အရေးကြီးပါတယ်
Of course, the reason or the notion behind this clamor for freedom is that if one gets total freedom with respect to the enjoyment of all conceivable sensual pleasures, then one can gain some sort of happiness. It cannot be denied that in the enjoyment of some of these sensual pleasures, it certainly gives moments of happiness, degrees of happiness at some level. But such happiness is fleeting and transient. And when we try to experience some of these sensual pleasures, we go all out in some ways at some times. We may do so at the expense of others, at the expense of our loved ones, of those whom we care for. And the consequences of our actions may bounce back upon us. We do not get the opportunity to live a life that is blameless, that is free from blame. But we are constantly being attacked by our guilty conscience. We regret, we have remorse. We think about the bad things that we did before in our lives. And that becomes a taint, a pollution in our mind. And what happens when we lie in our deathbed? We will be able to see through all these things. Thoughts of what we had done before in the past will stream through our consciousness. We will be filled with remorse, with sadness, with sorrow, with regret. And what a death it will be. On the other hand, if we had known or had allowed our minds to accept the notion that some degree of control is necessary over speech and deed, and especially over mind, then we may have the opportunity to go through life in a very restrained way that leads to freedom, freedom from blame, restraint of the senses, restraint of the mind, may cause some inconvenience at the beginning. We feel threatened. Our mind, which is so used to so much scattered and dispersed thinking, our speech and our actions, which are so easily arise out of very unskillful, unwholesome motivations, are certainly being sort of suppressed. We feel threatened. There is a lot of mental resistance to what is happening. We have to observe precepts, we have to control the mind, to watch the mind. This internal subversion